It's the 23rd of February, 2022. Hi everybody, I'm Dana. How are you? I'm also known as the nuclear proctologist.org. You can call me, yell at me, talk to me. Blah, 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 blah. 709-589-4406. That's where it's at, baby. I got a rocker tonight. Woo! I woke up this morning and what a surprise, baby. I'll share with you at the end of the show. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Looks like everybody's doing good. We got a poll tonight. We got 15 votes saying, should journalists and academics who promote dirty, despicable, disgusting, filthy, genocidal nuclear power face stiff jail sentences? It's a resounding yes across the board. You know, what we do here is we cover the lies. That's why that poll exists tonight, is because this is what we do. If they didn't lie, I would have a life, but I can't have a life because the people that are supposed to differ, how would you really put it, I wonder? No matter how you say it, it's gullible. If you listen to the media, you're extremely gullible. This is a Xenon-133 radioactive fallout based on 20 days of radiation fallout from Japan. It's also global warming, how global warming works. You have these invisible clouds of radiation because gas, oil, and coal emissions don't create plumes covering the planet, and the plumes don't pulse energy at the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per millisecond. You're talking about going around the planet 7 times in less than a second. Pure energy. And that's, for 75 years, has been anthropogenic global warming. It's real, and it's caused by 75 years of the nuclear industry. So rain with 20 million particles of iodine. And the University of Simon Fraser, Chris Rosa, who downplayed the daylights out of it. I'll explain to you why that's so. Because how does a particle work? Is it different than an atom? Dana, is one dangerous and one is not, or something? According to Chris, it is. But in reality, I moved that somewhere else, did I? That's okay, we'll get to it. Here's Chris.
And living next to a nuclear power station.
Let me adjust that. Now, the whole list is right there. What's worse than a nuclear power plant? He's from Canada, or I don't know if he's actually from Canada, but he works for a British Columbia University.
And living next to a nuclear power station can actually contribute less than your loved one when it comes to...
Now, how did everybody know to laugh that time? Let's play it again.
And living next to a nuclear power station can actually contribute less than your loved one when it comes to... with myself as one of the principal investigators, was awarded $6 million.
Each year from the nuclear industry. So you had a pretty big incentive to get up there and lie about and write about what the effects per liter. Now, this is not the only isotope that came down by no shape or forms, right? As I showed you, that's the xenon model right there. So think about what happened in Taiwan because of Fukushima, where they told people to stay home, and they closed 130 schools in Korea because of Fukushima. Some of the models show 1 million becquerels a square meter of the Xenon-133. There's another model of the Xenon-133. These models are not based on actual inventories Another study showing 220 million atoms per liter. So your thyroid converts that into radioactive hormones perpetually. And so does insects and birds and animals and mammals. And that's why we've seen them disappear in the last 11 years till they just like they never existed. This is a model from France of Fukushima radioactive fallout in 16 days. Let that sink in for a second. 16 days. And inhaling just one hot particle can cause a cancer or an illness or a disease or an autoimmune deficiency, an injury. There was another study showing 1,500 atoms of radioactive sulfur per cubic meter was detected in the California area. And we have other models showing us Neptunium-239 covering the entire planet from TEPCO's numbers. We have radiation data from a Seattle area survey may be withheld by the feds for national security purposes. The study was leaked. It was actually 450,000 times above detection levels. And it would look something like this one. This one is a cesium, I think, model after 19 days in the bottom right-hand corner. And that 50 becquerels a kilogram in humans lead to irreversible lesions in the vital organs. And at 11 becquerels of just cesium per kilogram, children will start to see heart problems based on Chernobyl data. And that a senior scientist showed irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram. 50 becquerels a kilogram. And cesium remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. Think about that statement. And who was this from? From writers. UK sneaker plane, nuke sniffer. Plane spotted in Britain as spheres of war. And we've seen these connotations many times this week. The media looking for extra clicks. Spotted in Britain as fears of war with Russia rises. When there is no fear of war with Russia. But they need a boogeyman. This is prime boogeyman stuff going on. That's the sniffer plane right there. Spotted. An American military nuke sniffer plane has been reportedly spotted at the United Kingdom Air Base as war fear intensifies. The United States Air Force Constant Phoenix returned to Britain on Tuesday evening after completing a mission over the Baltic Sea. It didn't actually enter Ukraine airspace. Disgusting media, yeah? A reasonable way to expose yourself, because that's what nuclear industry does in their spare time, going around exposing themselves to children. A reasonable way to expose yourself to uranium. This is another Ponzi scheme in uranium, in the raw uranium market we've been watching for 11 years straight, where they trick you into buying the uranium stocks, and a week later you lose everything. And the Globe and Mail is notorious for it, right? This is a hideous picture. And it's the picture they use with that headline, a reasonable way to expose yourself. Children, it should be a crime to have children that close to a nuclear power plant for starters. And it's definitely a crime, even though we see it almost every single nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms because they suck up the radiation and then the kids eat it when you bring that food home and murder them. Why nuclear risk from war in Ukraine isn't missiles, more fear-mongering, but accidental hits on the reactors. And they show you these pictures. Hard cases, eh? All the crazies are out when it comes to this stuff. Climate fears on back burner as fuel costs soar and Russia crisis deepens. Climate fears are in the back burner. It was only 3 months ago that the whole planet was forced to listen to the Glasgow Climate Summit because all the media was out there just jamming that down everybody's throat 24 hours a day and made ambitious pledges to reduce fossil fuel use. The perils of a warming planet are no less calamitous now, but the debate about the critically important transition to renewable energies has taken a back seat to the energy security as Russia, Europe's largest energy producer, supplier, threatens to start a major confrontation with the West over Ukraine. And we've seen our Prime Minister, my God, it's so hard to say that, Justin Trudeau has rescinded the martial laws. We call it emergency measures here in Canada. Which was voted last night, 185 to 151, to keep it for another 3 months. Today, the Prime Minister, with his hat in his hand and the Queen's foot up his butt, rescind that, and now apparently everything is back to normal. And normal being that they don't have the emergency measures in place anymore across the country. The whole story is absurd. It's absurd. And then Trudeau said now he's going to fight totalitarianism and that he's not going to allow Russia to invade Ukraine. First off, Canada's got 4 submarines. They're all at the West Edmonton Mall. Cost $3 to go down and play on them for 5 minutes. Canada can't, imagine Canada shooting on an aircraft carrier, a Russian aircraft carrier or something like that. I can hear them up in the towers. Captain, the Canadians are preparing to shoot. You hear this like, bing, where our little cannonballs bounce off the side of the ship. The world's 15 biggest ships create more pollution than all the cars in the world. And there's 90,000 of them on the ocean at any given time, which is equal to around 42 trillion people on this planet every day when you scale it up in automobiles. That's reassuring, isn't it? Climate fears on the back burners. Uranium appears to be entering a bull market. My God, don't believe these people. All of these people should be in jail. I should have had that included in the poll tonight. We're killing it on the poll tonight with 21 votes. Wow. It's a miracle, I tell you. Should journalists and academics who promote dirty nuclear power face stiff jail sentences? Well, he should face the death penalty, but I'll be happy if you put him in jail for a couple of 1,000 years. Uranium's not entering a bull market. Sprouts Canada raised money and bought the physical stock last year, and that artificially inflated the depressed uranium stocks, and then they've been tricking people into keeping that momentum going ever since. Demonic demons, man. Showing kids in a farmer's field looking at a dirty, filthy nuclear power plant. Wow. Just when you think you've seen it all. IAEA says nuclear is vital for space missions. Remember, IAEA is United Nations. And you're not allowed to do anything unless the United Nations says it's good. Anywhere on the planet. And this is from Nuclear Engineering International, which is just, it's an actual lobbying group. And Google treats it like it's mainstream news and puts it on the first page every freaking day. BWXT awarded $1 billion in naval nuclear propulsion program options. Now, who the hell is BWXT, Dana? Hang on, I'm getting to it, damn it. Has manufactured naval nuclear components reactors since the 1950s. You know, Manhattan Project time. Its reactors powered the U.S. Navy, Ohio, Virginia, Seawolf, Los Angeles-class submarines, as well as the Nimitz, the Ford-class aircraft carriers. The company anticipates completion of the first set of components for a new Columbian-class ballistic missile useless submarine next year. You can't use the nuclear weapons, for goodness sakes. Today, those ships and submarines represent more than 40% of the U.S. combat fleet. So 40% of the U.S. combat fleet is pointless. It's a big Chernobyl running around on the ocean on top of that. And they've already lost some, right? Crew and all. Does France emphasis on nuke and the missiles, of course, out there killing the ocean? Does France's emphasis on nuclear power guaranteed its energy independence? It's got 12 reactors offline, and now they just found a flaw that they got to check every one of the reactors because they were all built at one time by the same incompetent scum. And they show you uranium mining. What they're saying is that France has to import all of its uranium. What are you talking about? Everybody knows this. Okay, here's how it actually works, though. Is that 60-odd years ago, France went to Niger and discovered Niger had got some high-grade uranium, man. Wow. Okay, well, let's cause a civil war, destroy the entire country, get rid of the borders, arm insurrections, destroy the government's functions permanently, and then get in and take that cheap uranium. For the last 60 years, that's what France has been doing. Because they're so carbon-free, they had to destroy a country permanently and enslave it on top of that to work in the pits of uranium. France is a bastion of nuclear power, yeah? That's a bastion, all right, but not a nuclear power. Deriving more than 70% of its electricity through 56 reactors and 18 nuclear power plants surrounded by farms. United Arab Emirates nuclear regulators expected to issue operating licenses for the third reactor in the United Arab Emirates. It just defies any logic. They got all the money in the world. They could have done everything renewable, but they want that so they could have nuclear weapons. Stupid is as stupid does. Leave nothing for the future. The nuclear power plant is designed according to the highest security measures, he says. Really? Yay. Does that mean it still can't melt down? Of course not. Does that mean it's not going to release radiation into their communities and environment and drinking water and food resources for its entire lifespan plus 1 million years? Of course it does. It's going to release it. You can't contain it. House of the Lords considers a UK nuclear financial plan. Really? Considers. I say it's a bit stronger than that. The proposed changes to the funding models for new nuclear cleared their first hurdle as members of the UK Parliament's second chamber debated nuclear energy financing bill for the first time. With all but one of the UK's current nuclear reactors scheduled to close by 2028, representing 85% of their nuclear capacity, the need for more genocide disease factories is more urgent than ever. The UK government is aiming to bring at least one large-scale nuclear project to final investment decision by the end of the Parliament at 2024. And has also been supporting the development of work for small modular reactors. Really? Like you gave them just a pittance, really. not enough to actually do the job. Thank goodness, I'm not complaining, I'm just saying. Nuclear power will need to play a significant role in UK's future energy mix to ensure reliable, low carbon power as we transition towards Miles Allen's net zero. So, like, these people, well, this is from World Nuclear News. This is like the Nazis of nuclear. Ushering in safe low-carbon electricity generated by nuclear fusion. Another paper that means nothing. I don't know how the academics that are working on this fusion can sleep at night. I really don't. You got so many other things that they should be solving, and they put them on something that they'll spend their whole life at and retire and still not crack it. It's the perfect job for an inbreed, right? Material engineers at the University of Surrey, and these are degenerates we covered many times. And speaking of degenerates, the UK Atomic Energy Authority, there's some degenerates there, man. Wow. I'm pretty sure none of them can tie their own shoes. Are supporting an international effort to develop a new, economically viable and safe source of low-carbon electricity through nuclear puking. Whoever wrote that should go to Fukushima for 5 minutes. Changed their lives, to tell you what. Collaboration between the University of Surrey, United Kingdom's Atomic Energy Agency, the Ural Fusion, the Science and Technological Facilities Council, ICE's Neutron and Muon Source and Industry. Yeah, you couldn't make it any longer, could you? Nuclear exit. Federal energy regulators raise concern for energy. Federal regulators. Nuclear exit for Brussels. So everybody agreed on they were going to exit. Now the nuclear industry like, what? Somebody's going to exit in Brussels? Get our lobbyists down there right away. Kick their asses. Right by major drinking water sources. No doubt surrounded by farms. A prematurely published report for Belgium's Commission on Electricity and Gas appeared briefly, because somebody was out there scouring it and got it, briefly on the Federal Energy Regulator's website on Friday. It was a 15th of a thousandth of a millionth of a second, and the media's like, gotcha, a scoop. Calls the question whether the country's energy supply can withstand. Why are you quoting it? They took it down. These are the same people, if you never mind. Put dog poo on a slice of bread and gave it to them, they'd actually eat it. If you told them it was nuclear friendly, of course. The dog voted for nuclear last year or something. That appeared only briefly. Just briefly. It was a millionth of a second. But we've seen that. We got a screen capture. On the Federal Energy Regulator's website on Friday. You're going to think anybody's out there scanning that website constantly and found that little tidbit and went, whoo-hoo! Breaking story from Brussels Times. Leaked report, they even say later, right? It leaked it. To start up a conversation. What? Because it was illegal to leak the report, basically. Genocide, nuclear bombs. Wait, what? Putin's unfounded claims. I think Putin knows a little thing or two about genocide. His parents both worked for Stalin. That's not a rumor. Genocide, so he grew up loving Stalin, right? Genocide, nuclear ambition. Plus, he was Young Americans, Leaders for Young Americans. He was in that club, too. Genocide, nuclear ambitions, neo-Nazis, the Russian president's incendiary rhetoric this week against Ukraine. His leaders portrayed him as diabolical and fanatical, intent on harming the Ruskies. Putin claims Ukraine wants to exterminate Russian speakers in the east of the country. NATO and all-out war. For several weeks, Putin has been repeating a catastrophic scenario of all-out war in order to justify security guarantees demanded by Russia. No NATO expansion in Ukraine and the withdrawals of additional NATO forces sent to the... Well, you got to have some fear-mongering to make it work, right? To get the locals behind, you got to say, they're going to exterminate you. We got to come in. Putin's Ukraine move could put... whose nuclear power plant was that again? Finland's nuclear power plant that they're going to build with Russia in jeopardy. I don't know why they butchered the sign, why they put that up. Finland's defense minister would do a new security assessment of the partly Russian-owned nuclear power plant project. And construction work to site of the proposed new nuclear power plant is in full swing, but no final approval is granted by the Finnish authorities. So they're building a nuclear plant, but there's no approval yet. Not corrupt down there at all, are we? Just a little bit. KNF obtains license for fuel transport container. Kleptomaniac Nuclear Fuel has developed a light water reactor fuel transport container that meets international requirements with domestic technology. South Korean company said it obtained a license from Pioneer G containers for the country's Nuclear Safety and Security Commission. These are the industry insiders. They could have bullet holes in it. They still would have gave them the license. Said a new Type A fuel transport container will be used to safely transport light water reactor fuel produced at its nuclear. It's like 100,000 pound container, right, to shield you from the fuel. Manufacturing facility in to nuclear power plants around the world. Yeah, because they want to expand out around the world to move nuclear fuel. And the only reason you're going to move nuclear fuel is because the mixed oxide fuel reprocess, which is absolutely evil. It's the very definition of evil is reprocessing used reactor fuel. Each transport container can hold 2 light water reactor fuel assemblies. So each 100,000 pound container can hold roughly 3,600 pounds or something. War posturing should spur Canada to sign an anti-nuclear treaty. There is no Canada. There is no Canada. We're Great Britain speak war is all we really are. There is no Canada. Canada has no voice whatsoever. Justin Trudeau is proof of that. A drama teacher for middle schoolers is the Prime Minister of the country. And every time he opens his mouth, he can only say half a sentence, then he got to turn his head, and then he says the other half a sentence. Then he turns his head, he starts the next sentence, says half of it. Then he turns his head very slowly, by the way, like I'm doing. It's just, what the hell is going on with that dog? All arises, Ukraine issues state of emergency, suffers a cyber attack. No big surprise there. That's most likely the Americans. Oil rises. That can't be good. Everybody's gas is going up worldwide. And they show you idiot oil with an American flag. Crude was up 148 or 1.5% to 98.32 a barrel. Hit 99.50 on Tuesday, yesterday. The highest since September 2014 when all the whales were washing up emaciated from Fukushima fallout. U.S. West Texas Intermediate Crude futures settled 19 cents higher at $92 a barrel. Buy. Sell. Sanctions imposed by United States, European Union, Britain, Australia, Canada. Canada just does whatever the Americans or Britons tell them to do. And Japan were focused on Russia's banks and elites. That's an interesting way of phrasing it. And United Arab Emirates lone nuclear plant well protected. That's the headline in that one. So there's some controversy going on there that I don't know about. Sandina National Laboratory, built on one of the biggest freshwater aquifers in that area. And with a big river alongside of them on top of that, right? That runs down through all kinds of communities. Update software for assessing consequences of nuclear accidents. Well, they're experts on it. I think half of them there got cancer. And the other half is applying for cancer benefits. The Mendo code, Max code, also evaluate the potential health environment risk posed by advanced nuclear reactors and small nuclear reactors. They're the last ones I'm going to be trusting. You literally got to be stupid to trust anybody like these people. One of the chief improvements to the code is that it can now model nuclear accidents' consequences closer to the reactor buildings. Now, the reason they didn't model it close to the buildings is because the homeless won't be allowed to go there, right? And then they got to go there maybe, see? Out to 1,000 miles, which is pretty friggin' conservative when you think about radiation covers the whole planet, and just this one here from France, it covers it in 16 days. Read it and weep. If that don't make you shiver, you're cold-blooded, baby. Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission confidence that they're going to bury 2.2 billion pounds of nuclear waste from a nuclear meltdown site that's still melting down, by the way, will not have negative impact on people and the environment because they're already been irradiated for 70 odd years by a nuclear wasteland. These are goblins, eh? Actual goblins, these people. Canadian Nuclear Laboratories requesting that the operating license at the scumbag Chalk River Labs be amended in order to construct a proposed near-surface disposal facility, which is a real fancy name. It's going to be 60 feet high, and they're going to just put the nuclear waste there and pile dirt and cement and pavement on top of it, I guess. The current license authorizes and operates a range of nuclear facilities, radioisotope labs, waste management facilities, not that they've ever managed it, and other supporting facilities that they don't want to tell you about, like the nuclear meltdown. And it's looking, which they want to grout into place on top of that, is looking to approval to build a near-surface disposal facility. There's nothing to stop them, right? They own it all. Near surface, it's a stupid saying those words. The nuclear dump at Chalk River will host up to 1 million cubic meters. Because Canada's metric, right? What a shitty deal that was. It's 2.2 billion pounds of low-level waste. If it's so low level, why don't you do something normal with it? And be located just 1 kilometer away from the Ottawa River, which feeds into the biggest aquifers on the planet. The design life for the surface disposal facility is 500 years. Does anybody even believe that for a second? This is not a disposal facility. This is just going to encapsulate it at the surface. This is all you're talking about. And who's going to be around in 100 years to say, look, now it's killing the planet. Certainly none of them. And this waste could take tens of thousands of years, which they actually admit to. And he said it'll break down to the same you would find in natural environment. Man-made stuff actually doesn't break down. It keeps decaying in the anthropogenic order. It doesn't ever stop emitting differently than what the nature would produce, right? It's totally different from what's in nature. That's why it's described as dirty bombs and terrorism. The design life for the near-surface disposal facility, it should be illegal for them to call something like that, is 500 years. Why put it at the surface where the wind and the rain and the snow and the temperatures are going to pound it? Sometimes it's going to be minus 30, minus 40, 50 with wind chills there. It's idiotic to leave it in the element. That's the problem. And it's idiotic to have it so close to the Ottawa River. Why not bring it 1,000 miles inland where it can't affect the water supplies for 1 billion years? Because they hate us for some reason. Canadian nuclear laboratories, which, it shouldn't be them opening their pie holes. It should be independent experts telling you what's really going to happen here. They're just going to lie. It says 95% of the waste would be coming from facilities in Chalk River, 5% from AECL sites in Canada, and 5% from commercial entities like universities and hospitals. Oh, so it's a nuclear dump. You want to put a nuclear dump there under the guise of legacy waste. You're putting a nuclear dump there. At least Bruce Power is trying to put it in farmland. At least they don't hide that they're evil. CNL says they currently have approximately 300,000 cubic meters, 300,000 pickup truck loads of ionizing waste and storage, and expects to generate 600,000 pickup truck loads of waste through cleanup and remediation efforts in a nuclear wasteland. So every time it rains there, it just hammers the Ottawa River right now, right? That's what they're telling you. And they need to clean it up. And their version of cleaning up is dump it in a hole exposed to the environments and pretend that it's going to be, which is better than their counterparts from Bruce Power, which said if you put copper sheathing around it, it'll last for 1 million years, Dana. Okay. You kooky batshit lunatics. Said they would ensure the Ottawa River remains protected. A little late for that, like 70-something years late. Do you really think when they had the meltdowns in the 50s, they didn't just go down and dump it into the Ottawa River? You really believe that? Because everybody else was doing it. That's what they were doing in Russia in the Tetra River. That's what Norway was doing. Great Britain was dumping it into the Pacific, into the Atlantic Ocean for 30 years straight. You really think the Canadians, no, boy, we can't do that. That's pollution. In 1950. They were Pickering, Ontario, and Bruce Power, Ontario, were taking drums of nuclear waste out into Lake Superior and shooting them with 30-odd sixes left over from World War II to sink them. There is no nuclear safety regulators in Canada. It's absurd to suggest that this is a captured regulatory agency. I can't read the rest of it. I'll get upset. Because believe it or not, I'm not even upset yet. You should see me when I get upset. Bit of a spectacle. United Arab Emirates authorities to issue license for third reactors. Yeah, we already heard that 5 friggin' times a day. Yeah, we're just bragging. We're the nuclear industry. Canada banks are urged to drop nuclear from green investment portfolios. Because everybody knows what's going to happen by 2026. There's going to be 4,800 gigawatts of renewables, which is more energy than currently produced by all nuclear and all fossil fuel on the planet combined. It's just going to accelerate from there on out, each year halving or doubling, depending on how much energy we put into it. It's easy to replace everything right now if we put our mind to it. If you take wind and solar and back it up with geothermal and tide, back it up with compressed air storage and pumped hydro storage, all 6 of them combined anywhere on the planet, you cannot lose. You will never ever be lacking peak power. You're going to have peak power all summer long, 24 hours a day. It's stupid not to do it. All 6 of them together. That's the solution, obviously. And you come up with many, many better solutions. In fact, there's one coming up at the end of the show that's pretty incredible. Oh, I don't understand what it is yet. I got to look it up, but I'll share it. Canada's big banks urge to drop nuclear from green investment portfolios. There's people out in the nuclear industry right now committing suicide because they think that that's the end of nuclear. The nuclear industry is full of extraordinarily shallow people, and if there's a car out in a parking lot that backfires, all of them will defecate at one time in their pants. Nuclear investment poses huge risk for private and public investors. Absolutely, man. That's the Pickering, I think, or Darlington nuclear power plant. Degenerate scum. They got $13 million when Fukushima happened. They robbed Canadians twice. And Bruce Power got $13 billion each to do upgrades on their power plants before the population understood. And then they started investing the Canadian pension in uranium stocks because uranium stocks were diving. And they robbed the Canadian pension. The Canadians, that still hasn't come out to the population, still doesn't understand what happened to them. So now they're going to go for a reset, and it doesn't matter anymore. Right? They've done it on purpose, knowing they were going to have this reset. Caithness Council says MSP opposition to nuclear power set back the hopes of the country. That's a bit of a stretch. This has come from people that lick the nuclear industry's boots for a living, right? They grovel at their toes every Christmas for a little handout. Marie Todd is facing renewed pressure over her opposition to nuclear development. Oh yeah, anybody that questions nuclear goes under siege anywhere on the planet. Even if it's a baby, the nuclear industry would make up all kinds of means. Baby's probably retarded. Doesn't know nothing about nuclear anyway. Councillor says her comments had set back the hopes of the country, and he urged her to think again. He got a brown paper bag with a few $100,000 in it. She'll change her mind, like the rest of them. He also asked the MSP for Caithness Sutherland Ross whether she had ever been to Donerae. Why would you go to Donerae for? Good God, man. It's going to take them 300 years to clean up the Donerae nuclear mess they got there. I can't believe people actually live down there on top of that. That shows you how good the nuclear industry actually is at frigging over humanity. Donerae remains our largest employer. Yeah, nuclear for the next 300 years. It'll be 300 years for to clean it up. It's that radioactive. Now bless her heart for doing what she done anyway. How rare is it when we have a story where somebody said, no, piss off. You can't say that. We're the nuclear industry. We'll get lobbyists to write the Congress and Senate and Lords. It's one of my favorite headlines too. Pueblo County drops support for nuclear power of NuScale, scumbag NuScale. And rightfully so. They have the moral high ground. Finland will consider cooperation with Ruskies on nuclear power projects. Will reconsider the cooperation projects with the Russian National Atomic Energy Agency. It's pretty fancy. They call themselves, different countries, the blah, blah, blah Atomic Energy Agency. That's groveling to United Nations, right? AKA New World Order, as George Bush calls them. Famine, subjugation, and nuclear fallout had a Soviet experience helped sow resentment. Man, the Soviets' legacy is brutal. It's brutal. Ariva Bay, Mayak, the Tetra River, oh my God. They scuttled ships all over the Arctic, dumped all over the Arctic nuclear waste. Every time I think about it, it hurts. Eh? Every anniversary, like, Jesus, they're really going to cover that again. This anniversary is a nightmare. It gives me nightmares every time I go through this stuff. In 1932, 1933, a famine devastated the Soviet Union as a result of aggressive collectives coupled with poor harvest. Millions starved to death across the Soviet Union. But Ukraine felt the brunt of this horror. Research estimates around 3 to 4 million Ukrainians died of the famine. And then Gorbachev, when things didn't go his way, dissolved the country. You know, dissolved people's pensions, dissolved people's patents, dissolved the family structures, dissolved the communities. It's absurd, right? Thing to do. It's a coward thing to do. Not step down, let somebody else try to rebuild the country. No. Sign a piece of paper and let everybody just throw everybody away. Which is what Canada is doing right now, isn't it? It is ridiculous to use Chernobyl to damn nuclear power. Really? Really? It's ridiculous to let you, by letter, they don't tell you who it is. You like this one. He's a pilot, and he equates radioactive fallout with a plane crash. Well, a plane crash says got 100 people, 200 people, 500 people, whatever. It has an infinite amount of people, and that's it. And the crash site is where the damage is to. Chernobyl had a nuclear meltdown, and it covered the entire planet with radioactive fallout. It closed 9,000 farms in the United Kingdom 3,000 miles away. You despicable sack of shit, you. You disgusting parasite, you who wrote this article. You know, there's orphanage after orphanage after orphanage after orphanage in Belarus and Ukraine full of incredibly disfigured entities that are supposed to be children, that are abandoned, that don't even have a color television, for Christ's sake, let alone television or a radio to keep them entertained. Generation after generation thrown away like their paper towels. And you're comparing it to a plane crash. Your parents should be arrested for having you, man. You're a horrific example of humanity. It's humiliating that people like that actually exist on this planet. And I resent that you done that and said that. Is it a crime to want to be a human? Well, it is if you are in Chernobyl's fallout, Pat. So, a plane crashes in a field is not equal to a nuclear meltdown. Show what a nuclear meltdown actually means. The influences of post-Chernobyl fallout on birth defects and abortion rates in Austria, not Ukraine, but Austria. Trends in human sex odds at birth in Europe because of a nuclear meltdown. Do you think a plane crash is going to change the sex ratio of everybody in Europe? You creepy, despicable creature. Prenatal loss of 400 male fetuses in the Czech Republic. Secondary sex ratio and trends in associated gender-specific births, more males to females, around France and Germany. Non-thyroid cancers in North Ukraine post-Chernobyl. Think a plane crash is going to do all of this? Congenital abnormality registries in Belarus. Public health impact of Chernobyl. You take a plane crash somewhere is going to affect the public health of an entire continent. Fallout from Chernobyl acts on overall cancer incidences in Finland. Down syndrome time clustering in Belarus because of Chernobyl fallout. Non-thyroid cancers in Belarus residents because of Chernobyl. Chernobyl fallout and prenatal mortalities in the United Kingdom, England, Wales because of Chernobyl. Reindeer with chromosome aberrations because of the Chernobyl accident. Birth defects, abortion rates, estimated lifetime effective doses to hunters and their families in the 3 most contaminated countries. In Sweden after Chernobyl, differences in effects and radiation of abundance of animals in Fukushima and Chernobyl. That was a Jerry Thomas, United Kingdom scumbag. Incidences of illegal abortion in Sweden after Chernobyl. It's absurd. Legally induced abortions in Denmark after Chernobyl. Pregnancy outcome in Finland after Chernobyl. Pregnancy outcome in Norway after Chernobyl. Early infant mortalities in West Germany before and after Chernobyl. Anyway, I think you kind of get where I'm going with this. Global implications of Chernobyl. And you're going to compare it to a plane. It's people like you. South Korea's support for domestic nuclear arsenal has grown. When they were phasing out nuclear, the next people gets in power like, no, everything's nuclear, don't worry, nuclear industry, we got your back. You know, because you paid to get us back into power, we got your back. All the crazies are out. Kazakhstan working to produce nuclear energy. If you look at the legacy in Kazakhstan from all the nuclear testing by the Soviet Union, and all the disabilities and disabled people there because of that legacy. You can see the nuclear industry infiltrates a country, gets into key positions of power and control and monetary, and then appropriates for the nuclear industry until the country is bankrupt and has no normal functions, only nuclear. It's the largest producer of crude uranium. Cheap uranium, I mean. They've been robbed now for 70 years by every country on the planet. The nuclear industry is firmly entrenched there. Speaking of the nuclear industry, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is just another subsidy, United Nations got their hand in every pie on the planet, don't they? Expands to cover conceptual small modular reactors, other innovative reactor designs. In fact, if you call them up and say, hey, I got a design of a reactor in a glass house. Like, what do you need? We'll get it to you in the morning. Unless you need it right now, of course. What a gobblish industry, eh? It's an insidious group of people known as the International Atomic Energy Agency. It's like walking in your house and every wall is covered in cockroaches. That's what it feels like when you're around these people. Packed nuclear plant investment will not go ahead if the current form in opposition wins. And if united opposition wins the April 3rd general elections in Hungary, the project to expand PAC's nuclear power plant in Hungary will not be implemented in our current scumbag form. Faulty assumptions about the global nuclear threat may require changes. Of course, this is military media, right? This one. In U.S. sea-based nuclear force. First off, you can have all the nuclear weapons you want, but you can't use it. You ain't going to use it because you can't cash your checks no more. And this fear-mongering thing is a way of just bankrupting the country. That's what it's all about. The military is about bankrupting the country and the morals of the country. Most important is the need to reconsider how many of these submarines will be needed and what their submarine-launched ballistic missiles capacity per hull will need to be relative to the diversified threat that includes, you guessed it, North Korea and Iran. You don't need a nuclear submarine to take on North Korea. You got 49 bases around Iran, for God's sakes. They're just wanting to loot and pillage and rape their own country. Because that's all they know how to do, right? They're the military. That's what they do. They all wear these fancy-looking, stupid, idiot uniforms and rape and murder and slaughter everything everywhere they go. In fact, everywhere they stop and hang out, a child brothel will show up immediately, and children will start disappearing all around that part of the country and end up as sex slaves for the military complex. Yeah, that's a fact. Clean energy managers grapple with nuclear. The biggest green energy fund are exposed to nuclear power in their portfolios. This does not mean they think it will improve the world. They're just greedy. They're captured by the nuclear industry and they got to put the money in there or it's lead bricks in the river time. Nuclear is a dirty, despicable, disgusting, parasitic industry, period. Researchers extend support to develop new, cheap, safe, too cheap to meter, clean, green, and too cheap to meter. 70 years later, they're still doing it. Nuclear fusion. Your better chances of getting hit by a Soviet satellite in the next 3 seconds than you do if you see a nuclear fusion in your lifetime. Oh, we forgot. Get your picture taken. Yay. Whoopee fucking do. Excuse the Newfoundlandese. Nuclear waste management market. This company's pumping out everything for stocks, eh? On nuclear, you get stocks in nuclear, just about anything. The market research report of the global nuclear waste management industry. The market research report on the global nuclear, there is huge cleanup if they'll locate the money for it. So the Atlantic Ocean is a Superfund site and the Pacific Ocean is a Superfund site just from 30 years of dumping nuclear into the ocean. They already got 18,000 nuclear dump sites up there from Russia and the USSR. You got a poll tonight, a big poll, a big shot poll. Should journalists and academics who promote dirty nuclear power face stiff jail sentences? I got an overwhelming vote on that one tonight. Ooh, baby. Europe wholesale spot prices fell on Wednesday on forecast for higher wind output. They actually had a lull down their wind in 2021. Nobody could figure what the hell was going on. And then the nuclear industry seized up on that to see, like, wind's no good. It was the first time in 1,000 years wind didn't blow in that area. Yeah, but it's no good, see? Well, it is if you have compressed air storage and pumped hydro storage to back it up. Most of the panic about the further escalations of the Russian-Ukraine conflict appeared to have passed. Obviously, they don't want the stocks to bounce around, right? Yeah, they could be right. There's still lots of posturing out there about it, isn't it? Nuclear robotic market key vendors, they even got Northrop Grumman. It's like they're always in the game. They're the weapons. They sell weapons to both sides of the conflicts. They are the win-win groups, right? They have misery factories that people call bomb factories. They're actually misery factories, right? You can call them bomb factories, but that's not what they really are. They're misery factories. Reveal India's nuclear command structure. I thought that was really interesting, but there's no public information on who constitutes the executive and political councils under the Nuclear Command Authority besides the chairman. Supported nuclear weapons remain off-grid. Nobody really knows who's in control of the football, right? Modi visit to Punjab in January caused a huge uproar with a dramatic claim that his life was endangered by a blockade that prevented him from reaching destination. This allegation, however, is untrue. But in the entire saga, one important aspect went unnoticed. And did those who decided to abandon the Prime Minister's helicopter and travel for more than 2 hours across the countryside in rain and fog remember that the Prime Minister is the chairman of the Nuclear Command Authority? So that would have left the secretary in charge, would it, I guess? Right? That nuclear football is the fear machine, the fear box, right? Every time someone sees that, it's like, oh man, that's the nuclear guy with the nuclear numbers. You blow up the whole friggin' planet. And can't pay it cash his paycheck for doing it. Morals. Mac introduces a bill to promote transparency in state pension investments. Because the nuclear industry is out there gobbling up everybody's pensions. I'm not kidding you either. It's 100% criminal to take the pensions of people who work all their life and invested in dirty, despicable, disgusting nuclear. A pair of Rhode Island legislators introduced a bill in the State House and Senate that seeks to promote international peace and fiscal transparency in regard to the state pension investments in the weapons manufacturers. Here. Black Mirror's Charlie Brooker on gaming, nuclear war, and creating dystopia. He's worth a lot of money now. Growing up near readings in the 70s and 80s had in common with a lot of us a powerful terror of nuclear apocalypse. China's alignment with Russia. Imagine two of them buckling up and going after anybody. Game over. Don't take radiopharmaceuticals, for God's sakes. Here, I'll show you what you should take if you get cancer or your loved ones. Should take DCA, sodium dectochlorate. You can get it, and this is .com, Amazon.com America. Most Americans can walk into a pharmacy and buy it over the shelf. You don't need a prescription or a patent. It's just a mineral, but it's not very well-known mineral. And some of these ship to Canada, even though Canada made it illegal 5 years ago. You're not allowed to treat yourself for cancer in Canada. Never told anybody. They were like, people are getting cured. We got to get rid of it. It's 100% cure rate. Reduced all tumors by 90%, 70% in the first 3 weeks. which gets it off your vital organs. You don't need invasive surgery, and annihilated the tumors in 90 days, 3 months. Sustained nuclear fusion reaction releases power which is 10 times hotter than the sun. Oh, and it lasted for a matter of 5 seconds. There's another story coming up about that. It'll crack you up. How London's preparation for nuclear attacks have changed. Well, they got rid of most of the bunkers, didn't they? Which was for the bureaucrats, by the way. The slaves were given a booklet outlining what to do in the event of a nuclear attack. You know, duck and cover, right? If you're lucky enough to have your own bomb shelter. The Americans had thousands of short videos in schools and the movie theaters and everywhere else talking about how to build your own bomb shelter. During the Cold War, the threat of a nuclear war hung heavy with a blanket across Europe. There was a time when families really did live in fear that their worlds would be obliterated in a split second in a series of stupid idiots. These weapons still exist, and with relations between the West and Russia currently at a boiling point, fear-mongering. There's once again the silent fear of what would happen if a terrible decision was made to end it all with the nuclear bomb. In a video put out by Thames TV 1980, an interview with Londoners suggested 48% of the slaves believed that the authorities would ensure their safety and get them out of the city to nuclear bunkers. My God, were people really that stupid back then? Apparently so. Quincy Institute executive negotiators very close agreement on a new Iran nuclear deal. For God's sakes, agree, will you? The price of gas is killing everybody on the planet. You can't... Putin's Ukraine threat is a close call for nuclear conflict. Again, right? See these connotations? It's a close call for a nuclear showdown. Like the game of Jeopardy. You got your hand on the buzzer, Putin or Biden winks to hit that friggin' button, baby. End it all. Former Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, I can't remember now, was at a loggerhead with U.S. President holding the head John F. Kennedy. Ooh. In the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was the closest the nations came to a nuclear war in the 13 days in October. You can have Cuba, you want Cuba, we don't care. We'll go down and take someone next to you. Have a nice day. We'll go down and take Ukraine, right? The two most powerful nations have been screwed off against each other. That's what's going to happen here. This is another 13-day posturing. You show me your tits, I'll show you mine. Moment in politics. Immersive theater shows transporting people to Chernobyl nuclear plant in 1986 is coming to Swansea. Immersive theater. So there's a theater program with audio and everything else to give it. It was the world's worst nuclear disaster. We see that all the time. Every story on Chernobyl, you see there's a couple of these sentences, but that's all. It's going to be one or the other. Which means the nuclear industry had a heavy hand in the story, right? If not writing it themselves. It's bizarre. Chernobyl was a 200-ton reactor. Each of the reactors in Japan were 800 tons. Chernobyl was mostly graphite. Each of the reactors in Japan are 800 tons of pure uranium, pure plutonium. No graphite, just hell. Well, they're all gone. And the fuel pool's decades of reactor cores, they're all gone. They built a city to run the nuclear power plant because they're carbon free, I tell you what. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, they got JESCO there. JESCO, is it? Turncoat. Oh my God. South Korea ships the main transformers for the Romanian nuclear power plant. What a stupid looking truck that is. Not even truck, it's like a centipede. The Aussie, Cappy leads Aussie charge into U.S. nuclear sector with a historic Maybell uranium project. So I'm not sure what's going on there. It looks like they opened a bunch of land, 3,600 hectares, and they went out there and staked out 468 claims. For the Maybell uranium project in Colorado's famed Moffat County, known for uranium, coal, natural gas. Apparently it's a big deal. That land got opened up and they jumped on it. Now the nuclear industry is going to crash and burn. I don't know. We'll see. Addressing Ontario's growing electricity needs without, according to them, the only thing can work is nuclear. They closed down some like 700 windmill sites across Ontario last year, right? No, we only want nuclear. Experts safely manage disused radioactive sources after revival of Cuba food irradiation service. Probably one of the most insidious things the nuclear industry does is radiate food. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable they're still getting away with that. It's just inconceivable that these people exist. United Nations, aka IAEA, is there to make sure they can irradiate everybody in Cuba as food. It's just, that's not what food is supposed to be. You're not supposed to kill all the bacteria. The bacteria is part of the meal. The food doesn't break down. The nutrition is no longer there when you get rid of that. And that's what irradiation does. Here's what would happen if a nuclear, not only that, it's irradiated. You know, all the 2.2 billion pounds in Chalk River? A lot of that is just irradiated. Same as they irradiate your food, but now the food, good. Chalk River, bad. Here's what would happen if a nuclear bomb dropped in Los Angeles. You know, I don't think we need a model because we know what's going to happen. It's going to go boom. Well, we need a model for fun, though. They got a big response on that model. Scotland nuke map shows Russia bomb aftermath. That's just plain fear-mongering from the nuclear industry in Scotland, right? They got a lot of the military there, military nuclear dumps. It's a military nuclear submarine dump site, actually. That's what Scotland is. What would happen if a large nuclear bomb was dropped on Scotland? That's all, folks. These models are not very good. I showed you the real models earlier. But, you know, it gets the conversation going. The radioactive fallout would reach as far as northern Sweden. In your dreams, it'll go right around the planet. And a continuous cycle every 40 days. But that's a bomb. A nuclear meltdown is a continuous plume right around the planet. Where the peak is there every 40 days. Nuke map reveals fatality danger zones in Russia if Russia dropped a bomb in Glasgow. So the media's making big use of that right now, aren't they? Show you a few missiles, a few huge bombs, and look how big this feller is. Brother, if a nuclear bomb does something like that on the planet, I think we're all in a lot of trouble, yeah? And we got bombs out there that can do it. On top of that, that's the scary thing about the whole bloody thing. A massive hornet trapping campaign begins in southwest France because the radiation's killed all the competitors out there. France is brutally radioactive. Most of France's reactors are surrounded by farms. All the radiation, heavy radiation lands in the farm. Eerie map shows, and he shows a picture of Stalin's little pet lapdog. Putin, eerie map shows UK areas that may be destroyed if Russia drops a nuclear bomb on London. They were going all out, eh? Weren't they? It's all from today, last 24 hours. Kyiv now really regretful about decision to give up nuclear capabilities. And this media, the Australian media, probably didn't call anybody. They just wrote the article, right? Nuclear industry. Putin launches nuclear drill after Parliament permission to use army abroad. You really think Parliament's going to say no to Putin, who's an actual dictator? No, he said, hey, put out an announcement that you said everything I'm doing is okay. I'm here. Don't let me down. I'm going to chop your friggin' head off. UK body urges Japan to reconsider CO2 storage and ammonia fuel policy and invest in wind energy instead. Because Japan's a lunatic, right? They built an ice wall, allegedly, who knows if that's true, around Fukushima instead of a real wall. Why wouldn't you build a real wall? 100 times quicker, 260,000 less people. Commentary. Germany risks trouble without nuclear gas. Yeah, but they can still manage, he said. They're doing a good job on switching their economy to renewables. And they're getting there. They'll fire up coal if they got to. I like coal. Coal's awesome. Coal doesn't kill all the species on the planet when it breaks down. Just don't put it in your communities, morons. World's largest laser set huge fusion record. Is this the one? Because they got, no, I don't think this is the one. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it was 100 trillionth of a second. Try making that up on your own. 100 trillionth. 100 trillionth of a second. Can you see it? 100 trillionth of a second. $100 trillionth of a second. So they got devices out there can measure stuff in 100 trillionth of a second. Get your asses down to Fukushima right now. Does anybody believe that something lasted 100 trillionth of a second? You sure that wasn't static electricity? No. Like, how do you catch that on camera anyway? Well, we got to go through 100 trillion... 100 trillion frames to see if we caught it. Householder criminal case shouldn't be dismissed as prosecutor. Well, you got to set a precedence at some stage. Might as well give them the conviction, and you go after the rest of the dirty scumbags who've been doing it. He took money to give nuclear more money and to get politicians on his side, and a lot of money for himself. Ah, yes. UN ends Iraq invasion reparation to Kuwait. So all the oil they sold for 30 years, it was, or since 1996, I guess, is, the highway of death after that reminds you, don't forget that one. But all the oil that Iraq sold, 30% of it went to Kuwait to pay for the looting done by the Ba'ath Party. So the Americans went there and they flattened every building in the country with depleted uranium munitions. They got millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions of orphans. They got rid of the pensions and the patents of the country. But hey, Kuwait came out on top, and Monsanto, because the only food you're allowed to grow there for several decades straight was no hereditary seeds, just Monsanto seeds. But Iraq and Afghanistan, by the way. They get 10,000 Taliban. With the corruption, a gang of 4 generals from Pakistan linked to Swiss bank accounts. Come on, man, that's normal, though. That's what these people got the job for. They're thieves. They're murderers. Scottish nuke map reveals danger zone of Russia bomb dropped on Edinburgh. She's all gone. The schools, the community, the house, the future, the pets. Protect wheat investment from Chernobyl. This was a guy talking about, because there's a lot of money traded in wheat stocks, right? So what happens if Russia accidentally bumps into one of the reactors in Ukraine and starts up a oh shit moment? Well, then the wheat becomes contaminated and you can lose a lot of money. So they were postulating about that. Wasn't that nice of them? Nigeria minister upbeat Iranian supplies will boost the markets. Yeah, you got to get them to sign that paper. Sign that paper so we got cheap gas. Damn it. I'm just joking. A different point of view, crazy mass paranoia. Crazy mass paranoia. Those of us in elementary school in the 1950s remember duck and cover. Nobody really believed it though, right? As kids do, we turned into subversive pranks in the middle of class with the teacher's backs were turned. One of us with wise asses would yell duck and cover, and all the kids would jump under their desks, and the school principal put a stop to that by threatening us. We now laugh at the idea that adults expected us to believe that hiding under our desk would save us from nuclear weapons. I suspect that in the future, today's school-age kids will view mask mandates the same way if they don't already. A silly idea conjured up by freaked-out adults. Is North Korea going to test an ICBM? Like, who cares? I'm more worried about Russia or America testing up because they're willing to go to war. Take a first look at Cillian Murphy and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. A remarkable look, eh? And Oppenheimer became anti-nuclear. Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. Speaking of the destroyer of worlds, Joe Biden sanctions Russia over beginning of invasion. So Biden's claiming that Russia, Moscow, has started an invasion of Ukraine. AI harnesses. And Los Alamos reports, again, legacy cleanup contractors. Got an 85.7%, $8.37 million award fee. Just, the whole bloody thing is madness, isn't it? An Earth-like planet, neutrinos, mysterious mass, and disease eradication. And disease eradication. Unfortunately, smaller than Earth probably, and has oceans of liquid water. The U.S. is launching a nuclear-powered drone into space. They're called satellites, asshole. No offense, my apologies. I get sick of these people trying to play the duck and cover with everybody. And it's going to go to Titan's moon. They've already, I think Russia went to Titan, didn't they? The moon of Saturn. Engineers have been testing a bit larger for some time, a drone called Dragonfly. Oh, she's a pretty little one too. Look at her. She's not like the other ones with 4 propellers. No, not at all. She has 4 propellers. And she actually has 8 on top and the bottom. Look at that. What do I know? So they're flying it around in the desert, having a great time. Probably worth $50 million or something or more. And I got a little chummy pops up. That's why you're paying the big bucks for, baby. I like it. Why not? We can all go there and live happily ever after, right? He threatened nuclear extinction, Trump says. President Zelensky suggests Ukraine may pursue nuclear weapons to blunt Russia's ambitions. Who knows? Oh, this story here. Wow. Check this out. You like this? And you're really going to like the next one, I hope. The next one's different. Now you must go back to nuclear power unless Russia's invaded Ukraine. This is just a start. Putin will gobble up the rest of the separatist regions by intimidating or pushing Ukraine forces. Or next he will try to gobble up all of Ukraine. All of it. But here is an alternative technology to consider. It is a new ally that makes the air, the stuff we all breathe, very hot, instantly on contact. How hot? Hotter than steam. And wow, how can this new technology be used? Put it in a tank of water that you want to turn into steam. Place an air pump at the bottom of the tank, direct the air bubbles up and around the alloy suspended in the tank. Result, unlimited amount of steam for the cost of an air pump. A new alloy is real and can be used to begin generating unlimited amounts of low-cost electricity quickly. And guess what? It's incredibly green. Very low carbon emission technology. Air pumps use very low amounts of electricity, can be based on batteries fed from solar or wind. It's actually less costly than the solar or wind, as it does not have incredibly high infrastructure costs like sunshine and wind. The air is free. At last point, using this alloy can be in a closed system that reuses the same water and air to make steam. I got no idea what it is. I came upon it just as we're about to go live, and I threw it in there also. I might have more answers to tomorrow night's show. Grand jury, full court of public opinion. That's day 2. What I'm going to show you is going to start off at day 1, just a little tiny chunk. It's an excerpt from a book from 1989, I think, or 1986. I think it's 1989. We'll see. So it was a book written in 1989. So anyway, last night when I went to bed, I stopped. I was listening to day 2. And I was at about 4 hours and 2 minutes in. And I said, that's really interesting. I'm going to pick that up in the morning when I wakes up and start playing that again. So I woke up this morning and I hit play on it right away. And I got up to get a cup of tea. And within about 2 minutes, I literally couldn't get my mouth closed. And I've been running the entire day. I haven't stopped. I'll be running most of the night and all day tomorrow, maybe for another couple of days, to finish off a project. I'm going to play a small piece of that right now for you so you can get context from it. This is a grand jury that is looking into the coronavirus in The Hague and going to recommend crimes against humanity charges. I'm not going to go into it deep or nothing, but it is interesting what this jury and lawyers and judges have discovered. Here we go. It's very short. I hope you hear me out and listen to this. It is quite to something. There's a little intro to get you up to speed on what's going on, hopefully.
Hello and welcome to the first day of the grand jury proceeding. We are here in a room that has been specially built for this purpose, to hear witnesses and expert experts with regard to what's happened in the corona crisis. And we are connected with an international group of lawyers. And to begin, I give the floor to Attorney at Law Aina Garner from the United States of America.
Thank you, Viviane. It is my honor and pleasure to participate in this international grand jury investigation, an enactment of a criminal grand jury against some of the perpetrators who, in a worldwide criminal collaboration, committed crimes against humanity on the entire world's population in the form of a planned pandemic called COVID-19.
Ralph Emerson wrote the book, The New World Order, and it was 320 pages. And the prima facie information from this entire Operation Lockstep came from page 18 in that book.
Can you do us a favor and read those 3 paragraphs? Because I think this is extremely important for people to understand what happened in 1989.
I'll be glad to. First phase, common cold, flu, mild symptoms at most, media endorsement of mass paranoia and fear, flawed testing system utilized, which picks up any genetic material in the body and triggers a positive result. Inflation of COVID cases numbers through changing of death certificates, double counting, and classifying all death, including other diseases and natural causes, as COVID-19 lockdown will condition us to live under draconian laws, prevent protests, and identify public resistance. That's step 1. Phase 2. The first phase will lead to the compromised and frail immune systems through lack of food, social distancing, wearing of masks, and lack of contact with sunlight and healthy bacteria. Exposure to 5G radiation will further attack the immune system. Thus, when people reemerge into society, more people will fall ill. This will be blamed on COVID-19. This will all occur before the vaccination is ready in order to justify it. A longer and more potent lockdown will follow until everyone takes the vaccine. That's their intention. Third phase, if a majority of the people resist the vaccine, a weaponized SARS, HIV, MERS virus will be released. A lot of people will die from this. It will be survived. It will be survival of the fittest. It will also be the ultimate push for everyone to be vaccinated in order to return to normality. Those who have taken the vaccine will be at war with those who have not been, and it will be anarchy. And the predominance of that came from that page 18 in the other document, which is scenarios for future technological international development. So this is all tied together, and this was poured out, and it was meant as a document to do 2 things: tell people where it's going, and if you tell somebody it's going to happen, you keep reading it, eventually people will get okay with it happening. We've heard that all day today. Let's go to the next one. Lockstep is the fulfillment of the concepts and goals expressed and solicited in the philosophies of the New World Order and the scenarios for the future of technology and international development. Those concepts and agendas were put into operation for COVID-19 pandemic.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
$1989, all of that. So in 1989, 5G was already predicted by name and coronavirus 19. The novel coronavirus on top of that. And then that whole script that we're living right now is the same script right there. It's exactly it. From 1989, from Rockefeller, a guy who idolized Rockefeller and regurgitating his narrative apparently, or something similar to that. That was part 2. It's around 23 hours of testimony right now from that trial by judges and juries and lawyers and experts from around the world. And this was my second time listening to it. And then the first thing I hear is this morning is that statement there. And I was like, what the hell am I listening to? And I had to go back and go through everything. And I've been running all day because of it. And so I'm putting together a special video I'll put it up on my BitChute channel because you can't put it up here. The industry is crazy. It's a very long day for me, but that is an incredible statement. Yeah, too bad he's 6 feet under is right. So how did we do on the poll tonight? Let's end the poll, I guess. One more look at it. 49 votes. Should journalists and academics who promote the dirty nuclear power face stiff jail sentences? That's a resounding yes. Right? That's a resounding yes. And if we go shout-outs tonight, my eyesight seems to be failing. But that's an incredible statement from 1989, from page 18 of the book he was talking about by that same author. So that's the script, and United Nations is the New World Order, according to George Bush, as I played you earlier, right? At the end of it. That's who the New World Order is. And who's the person who's behind the pandemic is the New World Order. But Fukushima plays an incredibly important part. They're doing this, they implemented the plan because of Fukushima. Right? Fukushima is the catalyst for going for it. Because I guess what they figure is Fukushima's killed the food chain. And they're not going to have anything left for the wealthy, so it's time to pull the trigger on eugenics and exterminate the people, because the food is not going to be here to support a population. The food is declining and crashing, right? And that's what the research expeditions we've been doing have showed, is the complete crash of all the species. And we've done major expeditions showing that unequivocally this is an extinction event. And so they pulled the trigger, and nobody knows how far they're willing to go. It looks like they can't turn the clock off. And when you watch that stuff, you're finding out some horrific stuff about the vaccines that hasn't been addressed properly. And the evidence is starting to look terrible for everybody. I'm heartbroken. And it's haunted me the entire day now. And I'll be at it tonight, tomorrow, trying to wrap my mind around this story. Because that was an amazing, that they say waking up is like dying. Well, it's like dying for sure. For me today when I heard that. It was just stunning. That's just a fraction of the bad news, unfortunately. But the fight has to go on. Worst case scenario, let's get some revenge. We can't change what we can't change, but we can get revenge. They can't hide. They go in bunkers, you find their air supply and pour gas down there and burn them out of it. Right? It's time for revenge, maybe, but it's definitely not time to kick back. Race 60 from James, again, James Lucid. And so that was perfect. That was perfect today, and that allowed me to go full steam ahead. I got a long night because I can't rest till I get a lot of this done up. I'm going to challenge and show the documentation of everything up at my bit shoot in the next number of days, hopefully. I got to get through with all the documentation that I got gathered up first. I got like 20,000 pieces of documentation that I got to go through to find the stuff I need. And so it's okay because it's a refresher for me, right? I've already been through it all. I gathered it all. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night's last night, I guess, is it? I better check what I'm saying if I open my mouth. Yeah, tomorrow's the last show. I'm pretty exhausted, so I'm not sure if it'll be a regular show or a short show, but we'll have a show tomorrow night. No, it's just I gotta wear my glasses, right? Not wearing my glasses on purpose, because I notice my eyes are better if I don't wear the glasses. I gotta wear glasses for reading stuff up close to me, small letters. Okay, good night, everybody. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. There's nothing better than the truth, trust me. It's not normally good stuff, but at least we got it. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you do subscribe, click the bell. Good night, everybody. God bless. Have a great night.